You asked and now I'm answering. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I'm going to do a Q&A where I answer questions that you've given me either on Instagram or on YouTube. And to make this a little bit more interesting and not so boring with just a talking head, I'm going to record this over several days in different locations so it doesn't get boring with me just talking all the time. I'm going to start first with the Instagram questions. I didn't get all that many. One was from Steve at Yeah, I Have Killed That. He asked me if I have any travel plans. No, not really. I would like to go to Western Australia. It's the only state I haven't visited in Australia, but I'm not sure when. And if I do travel, it would only be, say, somewhere local like the Great Ocean Road because I love that place and I haven't been on a holiday in a very long time. That's not to say it won't happen in the future, but not in the immediate future anyway. The next question I got was from Gabby as Paul. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, Gabby. She asked me if I listen to audiobooks. I tried and I just get too distracted and I don't take it in. I don't work anymore and I don't drive, so I don't commute anywhere. I think if I was commuting by car or by train even, then it would be a perfect opportunity to listen to audiobooks. But yeah, every time I've tried, I just don't take it all in. I get distracted so easily. And yet I can listen to podcasts. Perhaps because they're talking, whereas a book is different. I don't know. It's something I want to keep trying to do, but I haven't found the right circumstances that are conducive to me actually taking the book in. And the last question I got was from Deso. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the rest of your name. I'm sorry, but I'll put it on the screen. Was, what are my favorite books, film series of all time? Oh, yeah, that's a hard one. My favorite book series are The Wheel of Time and the Dark Tower series. Definitely. As for films, wow, I have 1,000,001 favorites. But definitely the original Star Wars series. I love those films to death. And I love the Terminator films. And I love the Lord of the Rings series. Yeah. Moving on to questions from you guys on YouTube. Again, Gabby sent me a whole lot of questions, so I'll try to answer them as best I can. Gabby asked, do I have friends who I share my love of reading with? I have a few actually. My best friend is a big reader. She has a humongous library, but she tends to read more literary works and science fiction, so we often don't read the same books and we don't really get to discuss books as a result. However, I have a much younger brother, Chris, who is 12 years younger than me, who, of course, I heavily influenced in his reading by shoving books at him and saying, you have to read this. For example, I introduced The Wheel of Time to him, Raymond E. Feist, and yet now that he's older, he's also introducing me to new authors. He's the one who told me I had to read The Dresden Files and Red Rising, both of which I absolutely adore. So we do get to discuss books as much as we can, but he's also very busy now. He works full time, he has young kids, so he doesn't read as much, though we still often talk about books, what we're reading, recommending books to each other. So I'm very lucky that I have him. Plus, I also have a few other friends who read some genres that I also share with them. So I'm lucky. I have a few that I can talk to. Not as many as I would like though, which is probably why I have a YouTube channel. Yeah. Another question Gabby asked is, am I part of a book club? No. I have thought about it in the past, but some of the books that people were interested in were not really books I was interested in. So it just never happened for me. Doesn't mean I wouldn't like it, but it would have to be a book club that shares my tastes in books. Gabby also asked, what is my favourite bookshop or online store? I used to love Borders, who used to have stores in Australia. I loved visiting them, but they closed down many, many years ago. That was definitely one of my favourites because I could get wonderful coffee and browse all their shelves. Now, I only really visit one that is close by, and that is QBD. And whilst I like it, it's too crowded. Yeah, it's too narrow, and it makes it difficult to actually see all the books. So I tend to buy more online. And my favourites, I love Angus and Robertson, and I love Booktopia. They're really, really good. I also recently discovered a bookshop, The Book Grocer. You guys will probably have seen a video on this already. And oh my God, I'm in love with this store because it also has secondhand books, not just new books. Plus, places like the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence Bookshop online. That one is also a place that you might find something interesting. Honestly, if they sell books, I'll love it. Yeah, really. And the last question Gabby asked was, do I have a favourite reading routine, like with a drink in a certain spot? Yes, I do. I read in 2, maybe 3 different places. At the moment, I do most of my reading in the evenings on my favourite armchair, which also faces my TV, because I have a lovely TV for movies, because I do love movies. But this armchair has a footrest and you can recline as well. It's very comfortable, and that is generally where I do 99% of my reading, I would say. And it's always in the evenings, it's always after dinner, and it's usually with a coffee because I'm a coffee addict. You do not want to talk to me until I've had my coffee in the morning. I am way too grouchy. So that is my favourite routine, reading late at night on my armchair with coffee. Sometimes I snack, sometimes not. I'm not a big snacker actually. And I read really late at night because I am a night owl and I go to bed like 4, 5 in the morning, which means I correspondingly get up a little bit later than most people. That's what happens when you don't work actually. You can get up anytime you like. Sometimes I'll sit out on my deck and read. I have not done that as much this year for various reasons. And I'm always reading when I'm waiting for things like appointments. If I'm going to a doctor or something like that, I always have a book with me and read there as well. But my favourite place is definitely my armchair. And I'll show you what that looks like anyway. The next lot of questions are from Laura. I'll put your name on the screen as well. She asked, what books do I decide to keep on my shelves? All of them. I am so bad at getting rid of books. I find it really hard to let them go. I very rarely let them go actually, except I did start last year. I went through my bookshelves, I took some off. I had some old books that I had to go through that had been boxed up for ages, and I donated a whole lot of them to local charities. One book which I had to get rid of because I hated it so much was The Guest List by Lucy Foley, one of my newer books. But I generally always keep the books that I buy. Laura also asked whether I keep those books that I've already read because I intend to reread them, or are they for collection purposes? For me, it is always about rereading the books. I don't collect books just to have them on my shelves because I want them to look beautiful. I buy books because I want to read them and I hope that I'll love them, and if I want to reread them, then I've got them. That's my reason for buying books. Do I love having lots of books? Yes, but I have zero interest in having books that I'm not interested in reading. Yeah. Doing my Loving What You Own challenge and finding I'm running out of room again, because I always do. I have been thinking about unhauling those books which I don't think I will ever reread, though part of me doesn't want to. I just love having lots and lots of books and being able to choose, because maybe today I'll decide I don't think I'll ever reread that, but in 5 years' time I might change my mind. I have, for example, several fantasy series that I started many, many years ago, which I could have decided I'm not going to read this. I didn't like them at the time. I should get rid of them. And yet now that so much time has elapsed, I want to retry them. And I know that Laura asked another question as to whether I'm intending to downsize my collection. Hell no. No way. I'm actually looking to move into a bigger house. I've always lived in houses. This is my first unit as such, even though it is completely separate and quite large, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling because I'm using the scooter, because I'm having trouble getting around, and I've decided I need more space so that I can move more easily around in the scooter. And hopefully that will also mean that I can even add more books, more plants, whatever I want. If I ever downsized on something, it would be the plants. Yeah, not the books. The books, never. Yeah. The next questions are from MTN Shelby. I think I'll put your name on the screen. She was saying to me that she is curious about my reading life. Like, how do I read? Do I listen to music? Is it silence? What do I drink, etc.? I've answered part of this already, but I find it has to be in silence. Sometimes I can put, say, music on very low, but it has to be really low, because if I get distracted listening to the music, I find I'm not taking in the book as well. Another question she asked was dogs or no dogs? With my old dog, Remy, who was the best dog ever, I could read whenever she was around. She would just lie in bed next to me or come for a cuddle occasionally and then go back to bed. Cleo is an entirely different story. She is making it really hard for me to read at night because she demands attention all the time. She's a very demanding dog, and I'm struggling sometimes to read as much as I would like because she just wants me to play with her all the time. So sometimes she gets locked out into the garden so that I can do a bit of reading. But I definitely prefer reading on my armchair. It's the most comfortable seat in my home, and I can adjust it because I'm a wriggler apparently, so I can, adjust the footrest, I can adjust the back, and I'm always comfortable. I actually have another similar armchair in my library, but it is so crowded in there that I can't really read there. So I was hoping that when I move, I might be able to have this chair in another room, say, where I can go and read occasionally, just to mix it up. But my armchair is definitely the favourite spot, though in truth, I can read anywhere. I can read while I'm in the scooter, I can read in any chair, in any position, except bed. Bed is not comfortable for me to read in. I know a lot of people read in bed. Never worked for me. I've never really liked it, except when I was very, very young. But now as an adult, I definitely prefer to be in my armchair. And if I haven't answered this already, I just have regular lights because I have such poor eyesight that if I dim the lights, I can't read anything. Yeah. Next, I'm going to record in a different place and answer a few more questions. All right, I'm recording for the first time in this position. I have no idea how it's going to come up. I really hope it works. Behind me are my classics. Okay. Now, the next question is from Jess Book Girl TV. Hi, Jess. She's another YouTuber. I'm going to link her channel down below for you guys. You should go and check her out. She asked me, how did I get into reading? Okay. My mum bought me my very first little golden book when I was around 4, and I was hooked from then. I just realized that there was magic in books and that they could answer things that people around me couldn't answer. So that is my first recollection of reading something. The next question she asked me was, what was the toughest book I read? That's a hard one to answer. Depends what you mean by tough. If it's one I didn't enjoy and had to slog through, there are several, but the main one I found tough to get through was The Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I did not enjoy that series. Other than that, it would have been Moby Dick, because I tried to read that at least 5-6 times. I'd read 50 or 100 pages and I just could not continue with that one. So if you mean tough in that way, then I'd say those two. Okay, I can't even pronounce this name. It is Malena Orellana Palmer. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I'll put your name on the screen. They asked me if I read all my books or are some or many waiting to be read. I definitely have not read every single book I own, nor am I interested in having them all read, because then I may not be able to find something I want to read. I don't have a problem with having books unread on my shelves, though part of the reason I've been doing this Loving What You Own challenge is there are some books that have been on my shelves unread for too long, and I feel I should get through some of them. But yes, I definitely have quite a few unread. I've been thinking of making a list of that just so that I can tick them off after I've read them. But who knows if I'll get around to it. I'm going to mispronounce this name as well. Nohalink. I'm so sorry. I'll put your name on the screen. They asked me, what are my all-time favorite books? My absolute favorite book of all time is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. That one I stumbled across by accident when I was young. I was a teenager, I was in high school, I had read everything in the house, and so I started going after my brother's books, my older brother's books. That was one of his school books, and I thought I'll try it. It sounds interesting, and I just loved it. I have read it many times, and I'm actually due now a reread, but that is my all-time favorite book. As for all-time favorite series, there are two. That is the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan and the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. They're usually equal first because I can never make up my mind. They also asked me, are there any genres I refuse to read? YA. Definitely. Well, actually, that's not true. There have been a couple that I have read, but I generally don't like YA and don't read it. I didn't even like YA when I was young. Other than that, I don't really read romances anymore, though I can. I don't like bodice rippers, for example. I did read a few when I was young and I went off them very, very quickly. But I think they're the only real genres I don't read. It's not because I refuse to, they just don't appeal to me. I don't really read non-fiction either. And the last question you asked me is, can I tell you more about my fur baby? I actually have two. I have a puppy, Cleo, who is only 6.5 months old. I've had her since she was 8 weeks old. She is a German Shepherd, a purebred. And I also have a little black kitty cat, Maya, who is around 7 now, or I've had around 7 years. She's about 7 and a bit. She loved my old dog, Remy, who was also a German Shepherd. She loved her to death and so wants to be friends with Cleo, but Cleo is making her life very, very hard right now. She is too boisterous and even hurts her sometimes. So the cat is like, I don't know if I like this dog all that much. I'm hoping once Cleo gets a bit older, she will calm down and then they can become friends. I have caught them a couple of times sleeping together. So I guess we can only hope, right? At the moment though, Cleo is just crazy. Yeah, she is a lot of work. The next questions are by Patricia Penbury. She asked me if I live alone. Yes, except for my fur babies. She also asked if I have any children. No, my fur babies are my children. And the last question she asked me is my house in a neighborhood or in a small holding? I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'm assuming she means, is it a property out in the country or something? No, I live in a neighborhood in Melbourne, in a very busy city actually. Yeah, it's a suburb in Melbourne. The next question is from Kite562 Book Reviews, also another YouTuber who I will link in the description box below. He asked me, what's my usual reading setup? Okay, I have actually already answered this. I read mainly on my armchair in the living room, and I usually read at night. Basically, I just need a coffee and a book and I'm happy. Usually I like to have my animals lying around as well, and they're usually inside with me all the time. The next question is by Creamy Mari. How do I establish a TBR? Basically, I usually like to read the back of the book or the blurb online, and if it is something that really appeals to me, I will then put it on my long TBR list. But generally, I don't follow a strict TBR. I don't make TBRs per month because I will never follow it. I am a big mood reader. It will depend what mood I'm in as to what I will read. So I like to have very flexible TBR lists. And that is just usually a reminder to me not to forget that I'm interested in this book. Not so much because I have to read everything on that list. Creamy Mari also asked me if I have any reading gadgets. No, except for an e-reader. I think I have a Kobo Libra 2. I love my e-reader, but I definitely prefer to read physical books. I did try a cushion to rest my hands because some of my hardcovers are really heavy. I didn't like this cushion that I bought, so I'm going to try a second one. But other than that, no reading gadgets. The next question Mari asked me was, where did my love of reading begin? That I have already answered. It was when I was about 4 and I got my first little golden book. The next lot of questions are from Michael. He's asked me several things. One of them was, did my parents read? And did I read in Greek when I was little? My parents were not readers, no, other than newspapers and maybe magazines, but they were definitely not readers of books. And yes, I can read Greek. I did read some of it when I was little. I was better when I was little, obviously, because I used it more. I can still read it now, but I'm really slow, and I definitely prefer to read in English. He also asked me if I have any connection to Greece, since I love Greek myths or myths in general. Yes, my parents were both one of 4 kids, and 2 of each family moved to Australia, but the other 2 remained in Greece. So I have a lot of first cousins in Greece, though unfortunately all my aunts and uncles have died and my grandparents have passed away. So I do still have a lot of relatives there. And I have been to Greece when I was very little, when I was 11. My parents were hoping that some miracle cure would be found in Greece and that they could fix my disability, which they didn't, of course. So most of the visit there, which was over a 3-month period, was running around seeing doctors and meeting all the relatives. I didn't love Greece. I was only 11, but I remember it very vividly. I have a very good memory, if you guys haven't guessed that, yeah. And basically, I thought they were quite backwards back then, which was in the 70s. Let's not forget. It was a long time ago. It seemed that we had much better facilities in Australia than we did there. But the one thing I did love, absolutely adored, was visiting all the ancient ruins. Oh my God. That I still remember to this day. And it was the best part of my visit. Yeah. So I do feel some connection to Greece, though not as much as some of my relatives do. Partly because I haven't been back since I was 11. Yeah. It's something I'd like to do one day, though I doubt very much I will. Which is a shame, but that's just the way it is. The other question he asked me is, what would I say Australia is all about? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a curly one. I'd say that Australia is laid back, cheeky, mischievous, in some ways broad-minded, in other ways not. I'd say that we're an easygoing people overall, and it is, I think, always trying to prove itself because we are such a young country in the sense of a Western country now, because let's not forget our Indigenous have been here for thousands and thousands of years, but as a Western country we are fairly young. So I think we're always trying to prove ourselves to be equal to others around the world. We also have our flaws, of course. We also have prejudices here. We also have narrow-mindedness. Like anywhere, I think people are generally the same. But overall, we're very easygoing. Apparently, we swear like troopers. Yeah, and I know I can be guilty of that. But to us, I think swearing, for example, is just an exclamation mark. It isn't meant to be offensive in any way. So some people don't know how to take us. What do I love the most about Australia? I love our landscape. It is so unique, so different. The animals we have here are unique. I love that we have all different kinds of landscapes. We have deserts, we have rainforests, we have reefs, we have very dry areas. We also have very lush green areas. Anywhere you go in Australia will be different to somewhere else. And my favourite things are definitely the outback because I've never seen anything to match it. The sky, the colours is just incredible. Plus our amazing beaches because we have tons of them. We're an island, don't forget, and we're a large island. And we have some magnificent beaches. So they're my favourite things of Australia. As for what you must see if you come to Australia, you have to see the Barrier Reef. Definitely, and you must go and visit the outback because I don't think you'll see anything like it anywhere else, though there are other places that might be similar. You should go to places like sanctuaries where we have all our native animals and fauna. There are also the rainforests to visit, and of course our beaches. You must go to the Great Ocean Road. It has some of the most magnificent beaches anywhere, I think. And his last question was, can I imagine living anywhere else, even outside of Australia or outside of Melbourne? I would love to live next to the beach because I've always loved the beach more than any other place. However, all my friends and family live in the city. It would be hard to get carers to assist me at home if I live too far out of the city. So it's kind of been something that I think about all the time, but it's not something that I think will happen. Living somewhere else, I did want to live in Spain for a while, just to experience another country. And I've always loved Spanish culture and food and music. It just never happened, though I don't think that would be a move for me permanently. Sometimes I wish I did live in Europe so I could visit so many other countries. Being on an island in Australia, travel is not just expensive, but it's also very time consuming. It can take 24 hours just to fly to Europe. It's a lot of time and expense. It would be nice to be able to just drive over into another country. That would be amazing. But I think I would always be drawn back home because it has its own unique qualities. The nature, the sounds, the smells. my family, my friends. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever move from Melbourne, though I might move down to the beach one day. Who knows? My battery died, so that's why I've moved. Okay, the next lot of questions are from Julie Martin. Again, thank you so much to all of you guys for sending me such wonderful questions that are making me think about the answers. Okay, she asked me, are mysteries high on my list of books that I'm looking for? It wasn't until recently that I've rediscovered an interest in mystery. I think it was after I reread the Agatha Christie books. I've been really enjoying it. In the past, I had gotten so tired of fantasy because that was predominantly what I read, that I noticed in the last couple of years, I've been mixing it up, trying to read different things in between the fantasy, which means I'm enjoying it a lot more, like reading classics or reading mysteries. I also want to add horror to my repertoire because I've always liked horror. I've just never found a lot of authors that I've loved, like Stephen King, for example. The next question was, what do I like in history? Any particular era or topic? I don't read non-fiction anymore. I used to when I was younger, but perhaps because when I was working I read so much for work, I was always more drawn to fiction. Now, if I'm interested in something, I'll look it up, whether it's online or in a book. That I don't mind doing, but I have no interest in really reading an entire non-fiction book. Not today, anyway. As for my favorite eras, that would be most likely the ancient Greek civilization, probably because of my background, ancient Roman, ancient Egyptian. I find those eras fascinating because they were so forward-thinking, so progressive in so many ways, even compared to today, that it amazes me they came up with such fantastic concepts, whether it's politics or philosophy. So yeah, I'm definitely drawn to those eras. She also asked me, do I prefer science fiction or fantasy? Definitely fantasy. I've never been all that interested in science fiction, though I've read a few things here and there over the years. Now I'm more interested in reading a bit more, but not hard science fiction. I don't want to have to look up certain concepts that I don't understand. It has to be something that is accessible for me, for my knowledge of science. Because I love science fiction films, but I don't need to understand how things work there. And that's what I would prefer in a science fiction book. But I definitely love fantasy the most. I don't know why. Maybe because it's escapism. Maybe because it requires a very fertile, rich imagination to draw some of these worlds. Maybe because it is a different era, a different way of living. I don't know. Regardless, definitely fantasy over any other genre. Julie also asked, do I have any particular authors I read or avoid? I'm assuming this is in relation to fantasy or sci-fi. I avoid YA. I don't like YA. And I'm not interested in fantasy romance, which seems to be a newer thing today. Yeah, I just like adult fantasy. Doesn't mean there can't be a romance in it. It just can't be a major part of the story. I'm more interested in this world and the fantastical elements rather than a romance. And in science fiction, if it's really hard science fiction where they're talking about concepts I don't understand, I think I would avoid those books as well. Other than that, I avoid John Grisham. I do not like his books at all. And I avoid Lucy Foley now. Yeah, she has become one that I refuse to read, even though she is very popular. Book clubs. I am not a member of any book club. And another question she asked me is, how easy or hard is it for me to talk about books by remote? I'm assuming that's in relation to YouTube. When I first started my channel, I was so self-conscious. It was really hard to actually do the videos, to be able to speak naturally. Now I feel like I'm an old hand at it, and when I do my videos, I try to talk to the camera like I'm talking to one of you, like you are here with me and we're having a chat. I try to make it seem like just a regular conversation, though of course there isn't any feedback from you. I've become so accustomed to it that it feels quite natural now, which is bizarre because it certainly did not feel that way at the beginning. If it's in relation to Zoom meetings, yeah, I don't think I'm any different in person than I am on camera, because I do actually have some Zoom meetings in relation to a group that I volunteer with. We quite often have Zoom meetings, and yeah, I'm the same. It makes no difference to me. And I think a lot of that has to do with my doing YouTube videos. You get so used to it that it doesn't seem any different whether there's a camera there or not. And her last questions were in relation to my pets. What's my preference, dogs or cats or that silly canary? I don't have a canary. I think if you can hear birds in the background of my videos, that's actually our native birds who love my garden. Yeah, I don't have any birds, but I do have both a cat and dog, though my preference is definitely dogs. Yeah, if I had to choose between the two, it would always be a dog, but I absolutely love cats as well, and I love having both. Yeah. But dogs are definitely my preference, and large dogs. Yeah, not little ones. My cat is a real cuddler actually, which is wonderful. She loves lying on my lap every single night, except when Cleo doesn't give her any peace. So I don't miss having a little dog to cuddle. The way I see it is I have a lot more dog to cuddle with a large dog. Yeah. So I'm going to end this section of the video here, and the rest of the questions I'll answer in a different room. I've now moved into my library. We have just been reorganizing these shelves. I have two facing me that had Blu-rays, and I've had to empty one so I can put books in it. Yeah, so soon this might be just full of books. Wow, that's telling me that I'm buying way too many. Okay, let's continue. The next question is by Birgit. I'm actually not sure if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry about that. She asked me, how do I keep track of the books I read, or do I remember them all? And how is my cataloguing project coming along? I actually never used to keep track of my books. I usually remember which ones I've read and which ones I haven't. Occasionally I would forget, especially if it was a very long time ago. But since I've had my channel and I've been talking about books, I do actually now write down all the books that I read, and I use the OneNote app, just a very simple table where I list the book name. Really, I only want to keep track so that I can discuss the books that I've read, but I know that there are some apps which might prove useful, like to show me how many books in fantasy genre or other genres that I'm reading, the percentages. I haven't looked into it because this has been more than sufficient for my purposes anyway. And my cataloguing project is finished. Yeah, I have now catalogued all my physical books and ebooks, so it's up to date. The next question is from Mackenzie M24. If I could erase one book and or series from my memory to be able to reread it for the first time again, what would it be? Oh, wow, that's a tough one. There's several, I think. And I think it would have to be my favourites. Either The Wheel of Time, that would have been awesome to start all over again, or the Dark Tower series, because I just love that series. Or it could be The Stand, because that made such a big impact on me when I first read it, and I loved it and still love it to this day. And we're talking, what, nearly 40 years, or actually over 40 years. So several. There's just so many favorites that we all have, right? Which, if you're like me and reread them, they're like old friends. But I remembered the wonder of certain books that I read, like in the Wheel of Time series or the Dark Tower series. Reading them for the first time, it's just such a special experience because you don't know what you're going to find. I hope that answered your question. I couldn't limit it to one, I'm afraid. The next question is from Picky Cut. Which books do I keep returning to over the years? Yeah, that's going to be the Dark Tower series, the Wheel of Time, Stephen King. I often return to his books. Georgette Heyer, I love her books so much since I was a teenager, and I always return to those at some point in my life. What else? I guess it's always your favorites, right? They're the ones that I love rereading over and over again. The next questions are from Garden Plots 282. What is my criteria for keeping versus getting rid of a book once you have read it? I don't get rid of books. So I keep them all, which is not necessarily a good thing, which is why I'm reorganizing my house because I've run out of room. I unfortunately have a lot of difficulty letting go of books. I think it started from when I began collecting and I bought my first bookshelf and it was so empty. And I thought, wow, I really need to fill it with these books that I want to read. And slowly I started filling up the bookcase, which made it look awesome with books, always with books that I want to read. It's never just for the sake of having them. So I never wanted to get rid of them because I thought the bookshelf looks so good now that it is full of books. And I think part of the reason I don't unhaul is that I love how they look full of wonderful books, most of which I have read, let's not forget. And the next question is, have I ever got rid of books that I have bought but never read? No, I don't believe I've ever done that, except that I might. I do not like Lucy Foley, and I bought 2 of her books. One, The Guest List, I have actually donated, and I know I've got the second one. So either I've got it somewhere or I've already donated it, and that one I never read because I realized that this author was just not for me. It was a mistake I had made in buying 2 books by the same author that I had never tried before. And that's a lesson that I think I need to follow, though I don't. I often do buy more than one book by an author, especially if they're on special. But what if you don't like them? That's why I generally like to buy one book by one author, try them, see if I like them before I buy any more, generally. The other question was, how long would I keep an unread book? Forever. Yeah. That is why this challenge has been so good, especially now reorganizing the bookshelves. I'm seeing books that I haven't read that have been on my shelves for a long time. Unfortunately, this house is a little cramped for me, being in the wheelchair scooter, especially now that I've got plants. It's not as easy for me to get right up to the bookcases and just look at all the titles. There are some that I can, but not all. And that, unfortunately, is leading to me forgetting about a book that I've had for a while. And I simply don't have space to put all the unread books in one place. As for how long I've had some unread books, well, I just read Rendezvous with Rama, and I know I've had that at least 24, 25 years. So there you go. The next questions are by Joanna. She asks me if I keep a book journal. No, never have. Not interested in doing it. And her other question is, why do I love German Shepherds? Because I've had now 3. Cleo, my puppy, is my 3rd German Shepherd. I've also lived with another German Shepherd during my life. I think the reason I am so drawn to them is that when I was young, I always loved wolves. I thought they were just beautiful, majestic creatures. And I always thought German Shepherds and Huskies and Malamutes reminded me the most of wolves. And whilst I do love Malamutes and Huskies, I know they have their own unique qualities. Whereas I thought Shepherds are definitely to my taste. One is they're highly intelligent, they're very easy to train, they're fiercely loyal, they are so loving and have a maligned reputation. They are such gentle dogs with goofy personalities, which unfortunately, due to the fact that they have been used as police dogs because they are big and strong and look ferocious, people assume that they are all aggressive, and they're really not. So I think mainly though it's because they are very smart and very noble looking, and they remind me of wolves, which I do love. So that actually was the last question. I didn't realize. I cannot thank you guys enough for sending me such wonderful questions that really made me think about my answers. And I hope you enjoyed hearing my responses and learning a little bit more about me. And if people like this sort of thing, then I'm happy to do more Q&As in the future. I also hope you enjoyed seeing different rooms in my home and the books that I have. But again, thank you all so much for sending me your questions. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment, or subscribe. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.